from Spinstress Station on YouTube, and I'm coming back to you with a blog for May. Well, actually for April. A little late, but at the very beginning of this month I was traveling a little bit. I went back east to visit family, and I was also able to go to the Connecticut Sheep Festival that they have out there in Northampton, I believe. North Haven, I think. Sorry. I will put the right information somewhere on the screen. But hope everybody is doing well. It is already starting to warm up in the Southwest. Putting the air conditioning back on. Finding that it's really hard to sleep without a cold temperature. Getting used to that again. You know, the whole entire drill of living in the Southwest. But without further ado, I hope everybody's doing well, and let's get into my finished projects. Alright, so for my finished projects, I only have a couple of things that I finished recently. I've been kind of working on various different medias right now. So for the first thing that I finished, trying to keep everything in chronological order, is I have some vanilla socks for my sister. And there's no pattern for this. I used Berroco comfort sock, which is 50% nylon and 50% acrylic. Super soft, really easy to work with, has some elasticity, which is nice, and there's no animal material in this. My sister's kind of sensitive to wool, so she doesn't like the feeling of it. There is 100 grams of yarn per ball, and it's got about 447 yards in it. And I cast down 64 stitches. I think I went down to 60 stitches in the foot area after doing the gusset, and I also used size 0 needles. For some reason it's kind of interesting. I think I knit this sock first, which I think turned out great. And then the second one that I knit, either I cast it on a lot more in the gusset, so this area is a little wider, and then somewhere down here I noticed like I was kind of off with my decreases, so I had to decrease a little bit before hitting the toe. It's still a sock, still wearable, just I think she'll be fine wearing this one. I had her try this one on, and it's only like a little bit bigger, so I don't think it'll be too much of a deal. But it's kind of interesting how, you know, you start socks and then the second sock is like a fraternal twin. It's not quite the same as the other one, and yeah, we'll see what she thinks. But yeah, so these are done. It's just a basic simple sock, stockinette stitched down. I've got a 2x2 cuff up here, and then I've got my Eye of the Partridge heel, which is a reinforced heel. And then I just did an afterthought toe, so just decreasing across the top at some point. And I also did like a curvy toe here instead of a more pointed toe. I just find that those fit nicer, I think. There's not a weird pooch at the front of it. But at some point I do want to learn another type of toe, maybe something that will last longer. None of my toes have broken yet, but I just feel that whenever I wear socks, I tend to wear through my toes first before I wear out the heel. Let me know what you guys wear the most out on your socks and how you kind of combat that issue with maybe a certain technique. That'd be awesome to kind of share your different thoughts and feelings on how to deal with, you know, socks, so hopefully you don't have to mend them as much. Just thinking ahead. So those are done. The next thing that I finished was actually a spinning project. So on my last update, I kind of showed that I was working on a merino top. It was a 15 micron roving. It was hand painted by Edgewood Fiber or Edgewood Garden Studios on Etsy, and it was called Bright Outlook, and it was about a 4.2 ounce roving. And so I was also, at the time of my last update, I was spinning up the second merino roving that I was going to use to ply with it. So that was finished, and I've washed it, and there's 8 ounces total in here, so it's a pretty big skein of yarn. It's kind of like a fatter lace to like a light fingering weight, so pretty consistent. I think it would be good for a shawl. But as you can see, the orchid really pops out. And then you've got the bright outlook fiber that has the yellows and pinks and purples and like whites and some slight orange. But yeah, the orchid kind of dominates it, but I think once it is like knitted up into something like a shawl, I think it'll be nice. So let me see. I just washed it in like a basic yarn soap, something that you don't have to rinse. And I let it sit for about 15 minutes and then took it out and kind of whacked it against the wall a little bit just to fluff out and like re-energize the twist. So it's like not a super tight spin. It's actually a pretty loose spin for me, but I like having definition. So it should have some nice drape. And I counted this at about 1,800 yards, but then I tried to account for any shrinkage for like when you wash the yarn, and it kind of like the elasticity makes it jump back on itself a little bit, so you're going to have less than what you counted before you washed it. I think maybe there was like 11% shrinkage, so I think we're closer to 1,600 yards in here. I think what I might do is reskein this and recount it again just to see if I'm correct in that percentage of shrinkage of the material, because I also might throw this into my Etsy shop, and that way I know the exact yardage for when I post it. But the plying took forever. It took a lot of hours just because there's just so much of it, and it's 8 ounces of fiber, and I like putting a decent twist on it. So I'm glad to be done with that. I haven't started any other spinning projects recently because I've been working on some other stuff, but I might move on to the next Edgewood Garden Studios fiber that I got, which was like a BFL silk blend of kind of like the name was spring flowers, but it's got purples, greens, and grays in it, and a little bit of blue, I think, too. So eventually I'll get started on that, but right now I'm kind of taking a little break from spinning since I just did this big hunk of yarn. So yeah, and it's nice and soft and squishy. It like has a really nice bounce to it, so I think it'll make a lovely lightweight shawl or garment. All right, and then I'm only going to show a little bit of this, but I did manage to knock out a lot of project bags. I finished the last one that I was planning to do this morning, and so at some point, today's maybe May 7th, I want to say. Today's May 7th, it's a Sunday. But I just finished them this morning, and so at some point in the next week or so, I might do a shop update with some of these bags. And just to have like a small example of them, I have them here. So it's a decent sized project bag. You can fit quite a few skeins in here. There's canvas on the bottom, and then your themed fabric on the top. It is a zipper pouch, a really nice zipper on there, and then you've got a holder, and then I have some little tags down here that tell you where you got it from, and also on the side here I have a little tag that says who it was made by, and then also just what is it, machine wash cold and tumble dry low. And that should be pretty safe for these bags because all of this fabric except for the zipper and the handle and the tag over here, it's all been washed, so I don't think it would shrink all that much. There is some wool lining in here though, so that's why it's cold wash and then just a low tumble. I don't think it will have an issue. I'll probably actually test it out on some of my bags before I post the official cleaning tips for it when posting them, but For the most part, you know, at least some of the fabric's been washed, and so there's less likely a chance of it shrinking or doing something weird, provided that you do a delicate washing with it. So here's one example. I have Mandalorian bag here. I have some fun flower prints. I have a Marvel themed comic book bag. And a couple Asian themed fabrics. I have quite a few of these in my quilt stash, and I just had so many different colors that didn't quite go together that I didn't feel like I could really make a quilt with them. And so I thought maybe they would be nice in bags since they're really beautiful patterns. So these are just some examples. I have a couple more, but yeah, so they are large. I think the finished size is around like 14 by, what is it? 14 by, I want to say 12 or so. But I'll have all the details of these bags once I post them in my Etsy shop, so you'll know the finished size of them. But yeah, they fit quite a few skeins. You can even fit like a sweater project in here. Yeah, I was even able to like carry one of my really bulky sweaters I was planning to frog. I was able to throw it in here without having an issue of it fitting or anything like that. And then on the inside, there are some pockets. It's nicely lined with some fabric in here. And then there are pockets. There's a one big main pocket in here. And then on the side of that is like a smaller pocket to hold needles or a crochet hook. So yeah, there's like a little bit of accessories on the inside. And the zippers are really nice. I think they came out pretty nice and they're good quality. You can even have like a little charm on them. So those are just some of the bags that I've made. And let's move on to my works in progress. So for my works in progress, currently right now I am working on a sock. Originally I was planning to cast on a hat for my travels to Connecticut, but last minute I decided to recheck and make sure that I had enough yardage with the yarn I wanted to use for the hat. And apparently I was like probably going to be just shy of what I needed. I didn't want to play yarn chicken with it. It felt too close. So I think I can make some fingerless mittens with what I have left. It was actually this ball right here. This is Madeline Tosh Light fingering. It's something that I used in my Nakia's infinity scarf, and so that's why I was hoping to make a hat with it so it could go with the scarf. But I was also thinking of doing fingerless gloves, and so I think I have enough of this material to make the fingerless gloves, but now because I wound it in a ball together to be used in a hat, I have to unwind it and then wind them into separate balls again, so that way I can do the fingerless gloves. I do have some Berroco Milleflora yarn that I also used in that shawl that I have left over, and I definitely have a full skein of that, so I think I'll probably use that for making the hat instead. But yeah, that just kind of got put on the back burner because it was very much a last minute of me trying to cast on before getting on a plane and finding out I didn't have enough yarn, so I just decided to do socks instead on my trip. So for the socks, I actually am using a pattern this time. This was also a pattern in my future projects listing here, and so that got bumped to the top of the queue instead of the hat. But it is the Yarnspirations slip knit socks from Patons, and this is a free pattern. You can find it on Ravelry, and then they'll link you to the website where you can download it. But I decided to do the medium size sock, and that's casting on 64 stitches. I am using a size 0 needle. I find that's what fits my feet best when it works out to the correct gauge. And I'm still currently on the first sock. I just haven't really had a lot of time to work on it since the trip because I was actually going to see art museums and just my days were kind of filled. So this was mostly plain knitting on the plane and then doing a little bit at night one time when we were watching the movie. So this is the first sock. As you can see, it's got a fun slip stitch pattern going down it, and at the top you can kind of see sometimes I wasn't really paying attention. I might have missed a row where I was supposed to knit the row or slip it, so the top part is like me getting used to the pattern, and then further down being really consistent with at least the slip stitch pattern. But for the most part, like, you can't really notice it unless you really look at it. And here I've already knitted my heel. I did an Eye of the Partridge heel again. It is a reinforced heel. It's kind of fun seeing, let me see if I can open it up a little bit more. It's kind of fun seeing, don't want to lose my stitches, how the yarn pattern kind of changes when you do your heel because you're doing shorter rows across each other. So colors are able to overlap versus like further down on the heel. So I've already done the heel turn, and now I'm doing the gusset and decreasing right now, and still carrying that slip stitch pattern on the front down on the top of the foot. And yeah, so far it's been pretty easy. I think I've been knitting this like a little looser than I traditionally do, just because I was sitting on the plane and stuff was distracting me and everything. But the yarn that I'm using is Manos de Uruguay, the Alegria base that they have. And the colorway is Colorado River, which I really like. It's got blues and salmons and tans in there. I just think it's really pretty. So I got that at my local yarn shop. They were doing a sale on the yarn during one of our sock club meetings. And I think I had seen the colorway before too, and I've been eyeing it for a while, so I decided to get that, even though, you know, I've got tons of yarn in my stash. This is 100 grams, about 445 yards. It is, I think it's 75% superwash, 25% nylon, or like somewhere in that range. But don't quote me on it. I'll try and get the information on the screen for you, the exact information of that on the screen for you guys. It's nice and fluffy. It does split a little bit when you knit with it, but it's not terrible. It'll be interesting to see how this washes up, and if the color is gonna stay well. Because some of my socks that I've knit, the colors have really like bled out of the sock. It's not as vibrant as it once was, and these are pretty light colors, so hopefully it will be okay. And so that is my current whips right now. Nothing too crazy. Like I said, I just finished sewing, so, and I was on a trip, so I haven't really gotten stuff going yet. So let's go to my acquisitions. Alright, so for acquisitions, like I said, I did go to a wool festival in Connecticut when I was visiting family back east. It was a really wonderful experience. When we went to Connecticut, of course, it was the one weekend where a couple weeks before that they were in the 90s, sun was shining and everything, and then the week we visited it was raining and like a little cold. So got to experience the damp back east weather for this, and it did rain through the festival. I like had a poncho on and everything, and I did take some film of it and some pictures, so that will be posted at the very end of the video in case you wanted to check out and just look at everything really quick that I was able to get a picture of or a quick video of. But before I went to Connecticut, I did receive a Annie's Love to Knit sock club yarn. So that's what I'll start first with, chronological order of what I got. So this is Zen Yarn Garden. And so they're a pretty like popular online brand. This came with the club, and of course I lost the pattern again. It's somewhere in the house. I will find it and I will show it at some point. But I remember it being like a simple cable sock pattern. So they sent this lovely, beautiful, rich sapphire colorway to me. And this is their Superfine fingering. And there's 90% superwash merino in here and 10% nylon. And it is called Midnight Blue. So that is going into the stash. And you kind of see a theme. I'm kind of in a blue mood right now. So it was nice that I got blue from the Sock Club. So that was the first thing that came. And then when I went to the Wool Festival, these are all things that I got at the Wool Festival. The first stall that I stopped at was Kingdom Fleece and Fiberworks. They are a indie dyeing company, and I guess they also do custom fiber processing in Vermont. So they're located in Vermont, so I guess they traveled down to Connecticut for this festival. But they had some lovely colorways. They also had an area where they're kind of doing sales on socks or yarn that they had dyed up and were in their stock, and they're trying to get rid of them because they're older colorways or whatnot. So of course I love a good little bargain, and so from them I got 2 skeins of yarn. I've mainly gotten yarn for sock knitting because I had a really small pack and I knew I was going to really be stuffing my pack home, and I didn't want to buy anything that was super large or have to ship anything back. So I mainly just got single skeins here and there just for sock knitting or like 1 skein wonders. But yes, so I got 2 skeins from them. And just show them right now. And this one, it has beautiful peach colors, oranges, and some blue splashes in here. And then this one is a beautiful green colorway. And these might have actually, the fiber itself might have actually been processed at the mill. I didn't ask, but I'm assuming so if they do custom fiber processing, because it's not a superwash on the tag. And they're both the same style. So this is their Green Mountain sock base, and it is 75% merino and 25% nylon. Both of them are the same, but texturally wise, I can feel a slight difference in the softness of these two. So maybe this was a different batch that they processed with, like, it's still soft, but it's definitely a little bit more coarser than this batch. So maybe this came from 2 different batches of yarn that they processed on the site and then dyed up. But this one is called Americana as their colorway. And I think I already mentioned it, but 75% merino, 25% nylon. And it has 463 yards per 100 grams, and it is classified as a fingering weight. I would say that's true. Probably a light fingering even, almost. But I think they'll make lovely socks, and they are not superwash, I believe, so more of a natural sock with a little bit of nylon in it. And for the care instructions, it's wash cold water and lay flat to dry. Yeah, and so all of them are dyed and not everything's similar. So if you had 2 skeins of yarn, you'd be alternating the skeins if you were doing like a larger piece of work, such as like a sweater or a top. But I think this one is called Cameo, but it's handwritten on with paper, pencil. Handwritten with pencil. Why am I saying paper? Handwritten with pencil. And it's kind of, the letters are kind of smushed together. So I think it's Cameo. Just based on the colorway, that's what I'm getting vibes of too. So 2 of these lovely colorways. The people at the stall were like super nice and really friendly. So if you have a chance to ever see Kingdom Fleece and Fiberworks at a show, definitely check out their stall. They're always like helpful and really nice and answer all your questions. So those are 2 from her. And then the next stall that I saw, there were multiple barns. They were small barns, and there was like 3 or 4 barns scattered through this small fairground. And so you went into all the different ones. Outside, they had some sheep herding and then also a small sheep barn. and it was raining, so you're just kind of jumping in between all these different barns, trying not to get super wet. So in one of the other barns, there was Shirsty Cat Designs by Kelly Straub, which I actually heard of her through the Love to Knit Socks Club from Annie's Clubs. And I have her amorphous sock, which was sock yarn, which was sent in a kit, and which was kind of hilarious because that day I was wearing her skein of yarn, like I had knit socks out of it, and I was wearing it to the festival. I didn't even know she was going to be at that festival or anything like that, so I was just like, oh hey, I'm wearing your yarn. And of course I accidentally said amorphous instead of amorphous, so she corrected me on that. But really nice, a lot of beautiful skeins to choose from. And so I got a couple just sock skeins from her. They're 75% superwash merino and 25% nylon. The funny thing is that my dad, who's from Connecticut, I always ask him, like, do you want me to knit you anything? Do you want a sweater or something? You know, let me knit you something. And he's like, I'm from back east. I get super hot. Like, it would be a waste for you to knit something for me. But now that I've gotten into socks, my dad wears socks. So I was like, hey, Dad, I'll knit you some socks. And so he actually took me up on that offer. So at her stall, we went through and kind of looked at the different yarns. And I asked my dad, like, what yarn do you want me to make you socks with? And so he chose the trench colorway, just beautiful blues. It reminded him of the New York Yankees baseball team, which is his favorite team. So of course he had to go with this. There were two choices. There was this another similar colorway that was in BFL in nylon, but based on the softness, he liked the merino. He wanted something a little bit more soft. Not that the BFL was like super coarse or anything, but he just liked this one better. So I got two skeins of yarn for his socks because I think he's gonna want some higher like leg socks, and he's also a man. So I usually get through most of a skein of yarn whenever I knit, like slightly taller than cruise size socks for like a woman. I usually almost go through a full skein. So since I'm doing it for a man and I'm gonna have to be casting on more stitches, I got an extra skein of yarn just in case. So worst case scenario, you know, I'll have an extra skein of yarn, or if I go into it a little bit, then I'll have something for maybe like some smaller short socks for like myself or something. But this is what he chose, and they're really pretty. So I'll be making him some socks sometime soon. Maybe that will be the next sock that I cast on in the future. Probably just a vanilla sock, I think, is what he'll kind of want. Maybe I'll look into something with texture, but we'll see. So there's these two skeins that I got from her. And then I also really liked her Silence colorway. It's also made with the same just sock base as the trench colorway, but this one's definitely like a murky, almost sea foam color with speckles, and it also has some light areas here and there. But I really liked this colorway, so this was a skein for myself, and that's what I got from Shirsty Cat Designs. Another stall that I recognize and actually have gotten yarn from before, and it was actually rather recently, is Plies and Hellhounds Yarn Company. She is back east. I didn't know she was going to be at this wool festival, so it was kind of cool seeing her Instagram posts leading up to the festival where she's like, I'm going to be in Connecticut for this wool festival. And I was like, this is going to be awesome. I can actually like see her in person and see some of her things in person. So went by her stall and I picked up a few things. It was kind of funny because I bought the yarn at Shirsty Cats, and my dad's like standing there overhearing that like nice quality yarn from indie dyers can be like $30 a skein. And so he was just like, oh, I didn't know everything was going to be so expensive. And I personally don't think it's expensive. I mean, it's definitely higher end, but I think it's worth the price, and supporting a local artist, I think it's what I value. So of course, when we went to Hellhound and Plies, my dad's like, let me buy you this purchase, you know. And I was just like, oh my gosh, Dad, you know, I'm a grown woman, I can afford my own things. But it was just super nice that he offered, so I was like, okay, sure, since I'm getting new socks, I'll take you up on this one. So she likes to do Plies and Hellhounds. She has like folklore club happening right now. I got her in this worm colorway, and I think she's releasing one every month or maybe every couple of weeks, because I think she's had maybe 2 or 3 colorways out now at this point. So it might be like a monthly thing that she's releasing. But she kind of, for me, I think her aesthetic reminds me of like Victorian colors, just sometimes dark and moody, and just like, I just love it. It just gives me that kind of old feel to it. And of course, I went with another blue. I really saw another blue colorway of hers, I was just drawn to it. So this is the Sea Captain's Widow. It's with her Mary Cutie base, which is 75% superwash Coriadel and 25% nylon. But it's like this really murky, rich, dark blues with some browns and greens. And she classifies it as a fingering weight. I would say it's a little closer to a sport weight. But yeah, I'll probably be using it for socks, or maybe I'll put it into a shawl or something. We'll see, but super cute, very nice. And then she also had some dyed fiber for sale. And so I had to get some fiber from her. This one is called Lady of Shalott, and it's 100% Rambouillet, and there's 100 grams in here. But yeah, I thought it was really pretty. And interestingly enough, I have been going to some art museums in Connecticut and Hartford, and there's an Athenaeum there, and there was a really beautiful picture of the tail of the Lady of Shalott there. I think I took a picture of it. Maybe I'll be able to post the picture of it really quick, but it was just kind of funny how like that was a really pretty picture that I remember seeing in the museum. And then she had a Lady of Shalott colorway, and so I was like, oh cool, yeah, something to like commemorate seeing beautiful art and you know, spin something up for my other hobby. So there's that. Also, this one, the Sea Captain's Widow, it is 100 grams and it has 443 yards, just in case I forgot to mention that. But yeah, so really beautiful colorways. I somehow fit all this back into my bag and got home with it. And then when I got home, another Annie's Knit Club, Love for Socks Knit Club had arrived. So I got this in the mail. I know I have the pattern for this. I'll show a picture of it later. But there was a Misty Pines sock pattern that came with this. And it's kind of fine. It kind of looks like angled diagonal pieces of like knits and pearls to kind of make like a basket weave pattern on it. I will throw a picture up there. But this came with it for that pattern. It is, again, Lana Grossa, which I have a couple other skeins from this club of different colorways from past kits that they sent out. And this one is called Nanda. This is the colorway. It is 80% virgin wool and 20% nylon. And I believe it is spun in Italy and dyed in India. But it's kind of funny how this comes in the mail, and literally a month before that with my current project, let me just get it out. It's like the Colorado River, which is definitely a little lighter, not as many spickles, but if I had just waited like another month for my club, I would have gotten like a very similar colorway of yarn that's really pretty that I could have knit with. But you know, 2020 hindsight. But yeah, so really pretty. And this one has, I think, 95 grams and 375 yards in it. It's pretty tightly spun. So yeah, that is the last acquisition. Like I said a long time ago, wool festivals don't count. So, you know, I can bring some stuff home. But now I need to stop buying yarn. So that is it for my acquisitions. Next is future projects. Alright, so future projects. Like I said, I was planning to cast on the Lake Reed hat to use it as like a project while I was flying. Found out I didn't have enough yarn, so I switched to the slip stitch sock, which was originally in my queue. So now that's in my works in progress. So of course, still in my queue is the Lake Reed hat by Asita Krebs. It is a free pattern. I believe it starts off with a tubular cast on, so I gotta watch a video figuring out what technique I want to use for that. And then it has cables in it, so I'll do that with probably the Berroco Millefiore yarn. Then of course I recently got in yarn from Big Little Yarn Company from Japan, so I've got some lovely mohair from her. It's either like Surrey silk or it's mohair, but it has a nice halo effect to it, lace weight. So I got some yarn from her that I can now pair with a fleece that I got processed, and I plan to use the Benthe pattern, which is a beautiful sweater pattern with like some really nice cabled arms, as you can see up here, and that is by Natasja Hornby, and it's about 8 European pounds or so on Ravelry. You can find her on Ravelry. It is a paid for pattern. Of course, it is summertime now and it's getting hot, and I really need to knit myself some lighter weight garments. So the Hermeline, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. This pattern up here by Audrey Borrego is also a paid for pattern. I think it's about a little bit more than $9 USA dollars. And so that is something that I'm planning to cast on. I think I might use the Plies and Hellhounds yarn that I got, the Indus Worm that I showed last update for that, to make that top. And then, of course, number 4, I've taken a few things off. I'm just putting them on the back burner for when I finally rip out a sweater. But for number 4, of course, is some more socks. And then I will be finally choosing at random one of the Love to Knit sock patterns. Up here, I'll show a picture of those. And that's where you can actually see the Misty Pines pattern as well, from what I just got recently in the mail. But there's a couple of patterns there now, so I can choose from one of those and see how I like how they've kind of constructed or written their instructions for the socks. So that is my future projects update, a little bit of a life update. Been very busy at work, the traveling. I will have, of course, videos of the Connecticut Sheep and Wool Festival right after this, at the end of this video, if you want to check out, just get a quick view of like what it was like. I'm also applying for a job at work, still within the same company, trying to move up the ladder a little bit. So that was a little stressful situation because I just had the interview this past Friday. And like, I don't know if you ever noticed, like when you're ever stressed, some people process their stress in different ways. Some people like, have some unhealthy habits of binge eating or buying things. And so sometimes when I get super stressed out, I will do a little buying, like an impulse buy. So before that interview, I impulse bought a vintage clarinet. So for those that don't really know me, and I haven't really shared too much of my younger life on this channel, I was a kid in band. I originally in 5th grade tried out, I was like, I was gonna do clarinet. Tried it out, but of course the band teacher was looking for filling the different niches of the band that hadn't been filled, and instruments that nobody wanted to play really, or hadn't thought about it, so she had me try the French horn, and I was pretty good with the pitches and tones, and so she's like, you should play the French horn. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure, because I was really timid and shy, and I was like, yeah, that's great. And of course I love the French horn. I don't play it anymore. I even sold my horn, but I went all the way from elementary school through high school. I didn't do anything in college just because I was focusing on studies in something else, and I felt like the marching band probably would have taken up a lot of my time. So I really want to focus on my studies. So yeah, I played the French horn for all those years. I marched mellophone in the marching band, but there was one year in high school where I felt confident enough to be like, hey, you know, I've always wanted to play the clarinet. I want to try it out. So for a concert season at the high school, I actually did play the clarinet. I think I was okay. You know, I only played it for a short amount of time, but I think if I remember it, I don't think we had to do auditions for all the different seats in the clarinet section and in any sections that you did, just to figure out what parts you would be playing in the concert band. And I think I didn't get the last seat, even though I only been playing clarinet for like a couple months, versus people that I've been playing since elementary school into high school. So even though I was only playing it for a year, I think it was fun, and I really miss playing an instrument. So thinking maybe I'll try to get into like a small jazz band or something, but I just got to remember I got to learn how to play the clarinet again. But I was like, okay, at least I've had experience with the clarinet. I know the basics, and so hopefully I can pick it up faster than, you know, starting from scratch with a different instrument. So yeah, I bought a vintage clarinet on eBay. You know, that's always like a risk that you have if you do it that way, but I just didn't want to be that person that like I didn't feel like renting, and I didn't want to deal with newer instruments, you know, that are just made extremely fast, sold on Amazon for like a couple $100. I wanted something that, you know, had been made a while ago. Hopefully it will have better craftsmanship. We'll see. I just got it in recently, and so I know that it's going to probably need some new pads. Some of the cork is drying out, so that might have to be replaced. But you know, I just wanted to be a little bit more eco-friendly and buy something that was already made, something that hopefully has a little bit more care and attention into the craftsmanship, because this is, you know, a clarinet that was probably made in the 1900s, like maybe mid 1900s even. So it's really beautiful. It's a wood clarinet, and you can kind of see just the grains of the wood and everything. And there are people out there that restore vintage clarinets into good working order, and they also, you know, stress like, you know, a lot of these woods that they used in clarinets back then have been aged for like a decent amount of time. And if you get one that's like of good, like decent quality, you can restore it to like new. And it's just like more environmentally friendly, and it can also be a little cheaper to do. Cheaper, I mean, you know, it's not as expensive to do versus like buying a more professional grade instrument nowadays. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Still need to take it into the shop because I got it on Sunday, and we'll see what they say. Worst case scenario, I might have to send it to like an actual vintage clarinet restorer for it. But for the most part, just visually inspecting it, and I'm no expert in clarinets. Like I said, the cork is drying out, so the cork probably will need to be replaced. Just like a really good cleaning and oiling of the instrument. All the keys seem to be in pretty good shape, but maybe the cork, not the cork, but like the key pads, those might need to be replaced. So like just like maybe hopefully just a basic overhaul of the instrument should be fine. And then eventually, if I want to and I continue this, maybe just a full restoration to like new, because with instruments, the fingerings and stuff, as you use them, they tend to move and wiggle and cause wear and tear to the instrument, so sometimes they won't close as well. The holes that they drill into the wood can warp a little bit as they get older, so they might have to be like refined and kind of like, not per se like sanded down, but there's like a way to clean up that orifice to make sure it is like a nice smooth surface, so that when your pad goes down on it, it's not going to cause air leaking anymore or like skew the pitch and stuff. So the brand, that's the thing about vintage, is that like you can look at whoever's restoring vintage models, and like maybe look for a brand that was like really reputable. But sometimes there's also like these little niche brands that got bought out by other people, and it doesn't mean that they're bad or anything like that. It's just that there's not a lot of documentation of a lot of the companies back then. So based on like how it looked, I don't know how it sounds. It was in good condition. The person said it was playable. He was just selling the instrument, so he didn't actually, I don't think he like really owned it or played it. And I'm kind of interested to find out more about the company. It's been hard finding anything on it, but it might have been bought out by like a slightly larger company back in the day. So eventually maybe I'll just like try and dive into the history of this instrument, or ask around with people that are a little bit more knowledgeable about vintage instruments. So we'll see what happens. That was just like a little slight tangent of like a life update of something exciting. I'm always excited to learn new things, and so maybe just getting back into music and stuff would be a nice change of events besides all my other hobbies. And without further ado, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. If you made it this far, I hope everybody is doing well, it's healthy, starting to get excited for like summertime, or you know, staying cool or staying indoors if it's unbearably hot. And I hope if you liked this video and you want to see more of these videos, if you want to like and subscribe, that would really help my channel. And without further ado, as I keep on saying, here are some of the lovely pictures of my trip, and also the wool festival. There might be a little bit of art in there too, because I hit a couple of different art studios. But as we said, as always, enjoy knitting and